Good evening, everyone. Welcome to PSSL monthly members meeting for the month of July 2021. And I'm seeing quite a number of visitors as well. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Let's quickly look at today's agenda first. We look at the activity update, the interest group update, followed by the much awaited monthly presentation by Archana. So we had office closed due to the resurgence of COVID-19 and it's kept closed. We will keep you updated of when as and when the office is reopened, and until such time you can contact Rubini on the number and the email given if you have any queries. We had an annual general meeting for the year 2021 on the 26th of, I'm so sorry, it should be 26th of June. I have mistakenly typed as July. So following members were duly elected as the EXCO for the year. Hiran as the president, Suresh as the vice president. Of course, I was appointed as the secretary, and Sandeep as the assistant secretary, Gayan treasurer, and Shamini, Romesh, Professor Ravin, Hiran Vikramanayaka, Ranmali, Laya, and Nilan as committee members. And Ajita was appointed as the company secretary. And as informed at the AGM, we will be launching the PSSL distinction program very soon. The program will be run under 3 categories: licentiate, associate, and fellow. We will update. We are actually in the process of updating the website with all the details so that you can go onto our website and get all the details in one place. Once the website is updated, we will send out an email informing you all of the program and future plans. And then we come to the activity updates. The monthly, Capture This monthly competition, the current theme is bearded. The deadline would be 31st July at midnight. So if you still have not sent in your entries, you still have time till 31st, send in your entries. Current theme is bearded. And open judging for the month of July will happen as usual. Assignment, open color, open mono, and travel sections. Open judging session will be next Tuesday, the 20th at 6:30, followed by wildlife and nature judging the following Tuesday on the 27th, again at 6:30 via Zoom. And we are in the process of organizing a mini photopuri, which will be held on the last Saturday of the month, Saturday the 31st, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So save the date and we will keep you informed of the program once it's finalized. If you have missed any of our online sessions, go on to PSSL YouTube channel, where you can see all our previous online sessions. And if you have missed any of the sessions, you can catch up. And PSSL Image Gallery recently was launched. It's a place where you can have all your photographs saved for the whole world to see. So go on to the PSSL website and gallery.pssl.lk, go visit the website. And if you want to register, you can contact Ruvini and pay your subscription and register for the PSSL Image Gallery. Then we come to PSSL interest group updates. Last month, Street and Travel Group had their monthly meeting on the 25th of June. a presentation by Varuni De Silva titled "Through the Journey Through Rajasthan." And this month, the monthly meeting will be held on the 30th of July at 6:30 via Zoom. And we will keep you posted of the program in due course. And Creative Group has organized a session, a member presentation, Creative Expressions by Sam Samarakon. Sam, as you know, won a gold medal in all 4 categories other than wildlife at last year's Capture This competition. So he will share some insights and his approach towards the competition and the benefits one can get by taking part in Capture This program. So the session is open to all PSSL members. This will be held this Thursday, 15th of July at 6:30 via Zoom. And then we come to the most awaited monthly presentation. Today we have Archana Singh from all the way from India. Archana is Archana is known to PSSL members, especially those who are taking part in Capture This my monthly competition wildlife category, because she has joined this year as a judge for the wildlife category. So she's a designer by qualification and a photographer by passion. I think she's a self-taught photographer. She started photography back in 2006 by assisting a Delhi-based photographer, Akhil Bakshi. So through her photography, she hopes she can create awareness about wildlife, especially through her wildlife photography. She thinks, she wishes she can create awareness and reach out to more people and educate them. Her work has been published in many publications, including National Geographic, BBC Wildlife, and Times UK, and various other publications. Also, she has had several group and solo exhibitions where she had her work displayed. So today we have Mevan with us, our own Mevan Piasena. He's here today with us to moderate the session with Archana. So without further ado, we'll open the floor to Mevan and Archana. Over to you both.
Thank you, Nemi. Thank you so much. Hi, Mevan.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Archana.
Hi, Mevan.
So nice to have you here. So I might not take much long because you have already been introduced. So I should go straight to the presentation. Right. So hi, everyone. So Archana Singh today will be taking you on a journey behind some of her most iconic images that she has rewarded and got rewarded. And she will be sharing her personal experience. And you can witness some of the images that she has taken and what made her a successful wildlife photographer, and the path she had taken since the day she fell in love with wildlife photography. So to start things off, Archana, so I would like to start.
Can I get to share my screen because I don't have permission?
Yeah. Go ahead, Archana. I have given you permission.
Okay. All right, well, maybe go ahead.
I would like to start with Ranthambore National Park, as that I'm aware that you will be taking us through some of the national parks in India, as well as Africa, and of course, Sri Lanka. So starting with Ranthambore, I believe you have visited Ranthambore National Park around 18 years throughout your journey. And I have seen some of your pictures portraying tigers, especially portraying tigers roaming along the ancient backdrops of the park, which is something nice and very unique I have seen. Can you start with taking us through some of the images what you have taken in Ranthambore?
Sure, Ranthambore has been my favorite park just because it's very close to my house. It's drivable distance. So I have actually been going to Ranthambore since 2001, and I started photographing there 2006 professionally. So just to take you back, because Ranthambore is a park which is peppered with the ruins of ancient 15th century fort. It's a park which is a very unique park. The landscape here is peppered with ancient ruins, and to get tigers in such a backdrop is actually extremely, I mean, it's every photographer's dream. But just to give you an idea, I started in 2001. Now we are in 2021. And I think I have been able to take 5 or 6 iconic images till now. So it's not something that it happens. So this is one of the shots which was taken last November. This is a tigress called Riddhi, who's the current queen of this piece of land, which is called the prime real estate of Ranthambore, because it has so many lakes. It has a very good prey base. And if you see the backdrop, it has the ancient fort, which is atop a hill. It is a 15th century fort which has a temple, Ganesh temple, where millions of people through the year visit this. So, I mean, I've got, this is the first time, and I've got a tiger sitting across the lake or something, but this is the first time I got this image after 20 years almost. Moving on to the next image, this is the hunting palace. And it was used in the ancient times for kings to come, and the royal family of Jaipur to come and hunt tigers from there. And now it's Tiger's Abode. You can see a very famous tiger here. He was called the Star Male. He's no longer alive. But this image was made just, I think, about 5-6 years back again. So now if you are, if you are going to Ranthambore often, you do get chances. If you are a regular to Ranthambore, you might get lucky and you might get a tiger here. So for me, it was the first time I got it. That's a close-up shot. These little things were guard huts in ancient times. And this is again a famous tigress called Krishna, taken about 8 to 9 years back. This is the famous Rajbagh Lake, which tigers often cross. This is an iconic image, but something which is not very rare now, because over the time, tigers do cross this. And this is just one of the shots where the tiger is crossing and going to the hunting palace, which you saw in the earlier picture. So yeah, that's a few more iconic images from Ranthambore.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you. So going back to Bandhavgarh, I remember one of your favorite award-winning images of 2 tigers. And tell us about that scenario, the whole thing which happened, because to me it looks like a fight between 2 huge males. So what went through that shot actually? How did it come?
Okay, they are not males, they are females. They are there was a tigress called Rajbeda female in Bandhavgarh. She is no longer alive, but this was a first litter. These are sub-adults, and they were about 2.5 years old at that time. And as a part of their survival skills, tiger siblings or tiger cubs usually engage in mock fighting. It's called mock fight, which gears them up or which prepares them for a survival in the wild. So this was just one evening where me and my mentor, Sudhir Shivaram, we were there in the park, and we were doing a full day safari, and 15 minutes we had to exit 15 minutes later than all the other jeeps. And he was just giving me some lessons. And these 2 cubs were just sitting there in the grass. And suddenly they just got up and engaged in this 6-second fight. It lasted for exactly 6 seconds. And then one of them surrendered. So this is a part of their learning. This is a part of how they learn to fight. And, they learn the nuances of when to surrender, when to fight, who is the powerful one. So these are just mock fights. It's actually not a fight. It's not a real fight. Because a real fight would end in a lot of injuries and probably the death of the other tiger, whoever is the weakest one, if the tiger is not ready to surrender. So this was an image which was made in those 6 seconds. And then, of course, it was picked up and awarded the Nat Geo Photographer of the Year of 2014. And it's now licensed to Nat Geo fine art galleries in Los Angeles, and it hangs there. So that's the story behind this image.
So I think we'll start with Jim Corbett National Park next.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite parks. I really, really want to visit. I have been telling you many, many times
You haven't
that I
visited
do
there,
want
right?
to visit.
Yeah.
And especially with the landscapes and the wildlife in that particular landscapes, it's really amazing. So I have seen many photographs of you taken in this park. Please take us through that.
This is the Ramganga River, the most famous river in the which flows through the Jim Corbett Park, and this place is known as Dhikala, which is 1.5 hour inside, 1.5 hour drive inside the jungle to reach the core. And the guest houses, I think this is one of the very few guest houses which are still inside the Indian forest. Most of them have been now shut for tourism. So this is a park which is very special because this is a park where I started my wildlife journey, not photography, but started my wildlife journey. So I started going to this park in 1994, 1995. And that time it was very rare to see tigers there. There were no safaris, there were no jeeps, only we could go on elephants. And the beauty of this park is that this river flows throughout the park. And I think in the last 15 years, I hadn't seen a tiger. It's only about the last few years, 6-7 years, where because tourism has increased, because people have started going, because more and more people are coming, tiger sightings have improved. So now, of course, it's a very sought after park, very difficult to go to because you don't get bookings. But I think this river Ramganga is what adds to the beauty. And this shot was taken on one winter misty morning, and that's how it looks. So many times, if you're lucky, you find the tiger crossing. So there she's one of the most famous tigress of Corbett. She's called the Parvali. She's had several litters, and now she's currently raising a litter of 3 semi-adults, one of them who's already established a territory, and the other 2 are still kind of seen with the mom, but probably in the next season, we would all see them displaced and marked with their own territories. So this is the river which tigers frequent and cross like it's their own swimming pool. So this is a jungle cat, which I managed to get, stalking jungle cat, another rare cat to sight. A lot of birds visit this park. There are a lot of migratory birds coming, and thanks to a very dear friend of mine, Peggy, who's here with us, I got into birds. So here is a bird shot. This is a Himalayan bulbul. Yeah, I think it's a Himalayan bulbul. Okay. This is a brown fish owl. And this is elephant. Again, Jim Corbett is very famous for its elephants. So if you come in the season, you can get to see elephants and tigers in the same frame. That's another very famous tigress called the Grassland Wali, because this area is called grassland and she's the inhabitant of that. So she's known as the Grassland Wali here, stalking in the middle of the road. Elephant in Mast, Maven, yeah. Mating elephants, my only one shot of mating elephants in the 20 years of my wildlife career. Again. This is Grassland Wali, the tigress who was stalking her daughter. She is now old enough and she has her own territory. Here she is seen smelling and displaying what is known as the Flehmen response. What is exceptional about Jim Corbett is the clear blue skies. It's a hilly area, so it's cold, it's misty, and it's blue, and it's magical. That is what makes Jim Corbett a very, very unique park. This is again the Parvali, the famous tigress. Very docile, very graceful, really a pleasure to meet with. So this was very rare. This is the only time I've seen a leopard in this park, which was last year. And this wasn't even a leopard, this was a leopard cub who was in this area and has been sighted after that also, but always alone. And this, I don't know, I think it may be a 6 to 7 month year, but did not see the mother ever. And then we were quite worried about it. And then the camera trap had captured him again at the rest house one night. But again, he was alone. So even if he's alone and without a mother, I must say he's an exceptional leopard cub who survived the wild on his own. So this is my only picture of a leopard from Jim Corbett. These are just monkeys, rhesus macaques. Corbett gets very cold because it's in a hilly area, so they are just huddled together on a cold morning, trying to give each other some body heat. This is again the grassland area, grassland Wallis cub. Okay, so
just one question, Archana.
yes.
Looking at the nature of the park, the landscapes, and the vast areas, and also the elephants, which you said just now, which is very popular, Jim Corbett. If you can just give us some tips about what kind of camera equipment you carry to Jim Corbett National, because looking at the nature, I see it should be something different what you use because of these vast landscapes.
Yeah, because usually the tiger sightings nowadays, sometimes you get tiger sightings close by also, but usually when you get them across the river, I definitely would say my 800 is my most trusted companion to Corbett. Would take my 800 because the habitat of Corbett is so special. You also need probably a smaller, wider angle lens like a 24-70 or a 7200 where you can get the tiger in the landscape, because you get the hills, you get the mist, you get the clouds. So I do not use the 800 to get crops of tiger or to go close to the tiger. In this park, I would say people should and must focus on the landscape, because you get tigers everywhere. You know, you can get tighter shots. The 800 I say because some of the tiger sightings are very far. So even with the 800, it's quite a wide frame. So the river that you saw, if you see a tiger across the river, because the river background is not so good, it's just burnt grass. So it's not a very good habitat to shoot. So 800 works there. Otherwise, of course, I carry my 200-400 with the 1.4x extender and 70-200 and 24-70. So these are the focal lengths starting from 24-70, 70-200, 200-400, which goes up to 560 mm, and then the 800. So these are the four bodies which I carry to this park. Yeah.
Thank you. So can we move to the next Kanha, I think?
Kanha. Khana is food. This is Kanha.
Okay. There's this one image. Yeah, this one. Can you explain about that? Because I have seen a sequence of images from this particular hawk eagle.
So this is from my most recent trip last month, in fact, and me and my driver and my guide, we were responding to frantic tiger calls. So as always, everyone was rushing when suddenly I spotted this eagle right in this backdrop of the fallen. This is a particular tree called the sal tree. The leaves fall and the entire forest bed is full of these leaves. I saw this, I noticed this eagle on the ground. Eagle on the ground means there is something going on there. So I asked my driver to stop. And we, of course, forgot the tiger and we never went to the tiger. But what happened was she was trying to lift something, but she could not. And because the leaves are there, I could not see what it was. It's only after 20 to 30 minutes of recording and filming and taking stills that we were able to zoom in and see what she was carrying. Unfortunately, don't have that picture right now, but when she finally attempted to pick up that thing, whatever she was eating, it was a 2-day-old spotted deer baby fawn. It was a 2-day old fawn, and I spent 45 minutes with this eagle. And I think after the 45 minutes, when she had eaten most of it, is when she was able to take it. What was really heart-wrenching in this particular series was, at one point, just before the eagle could take off with the fawn, the mother of the fawn came, and she could not see the cub because it was see the fawn because it was eaten. But she came very close to the eagle because she could smell her fawn. She could smell her baby. So it's that. I have one of the frames which I will share with you another point. But there was one of the frame where the mother is standing and the eagle is taking off with the remains of the thing. So it was a rare natural history moment, but also very, very sad because, you know, one death of one species or an animal is life for another. So it's really sad to see, but also it's survival of the fittest. So this was the story behind that image. Then, oh, I have the image, sorry. Okay. So this, you can see, it's just the legs and the tail you can see now. Now I have a sequence of about 50, 60 images and a lot of film this, but this is when she took off with the fawn. I mean, I've heard eagles eating them, but I've never seen them. I've never witnessed it. I think we just don't have the patience to stop for a bird. Because I tried to stop many people. I said, stop, stop. There is something special going on here. Stop. What is it? What is it? Bird, let's go. So, okay. So this is another of my pictures from Kanha. This is way back in 2014 at the time of the tiger fight image that you saw. This is female tigress who had just made a kill of a wild boar. Wild boar is one of the toughest animals to kill. So she held him for like half an hour before he actually, poor guy, gave up his life. So this is again for my recent trip. This is a very famous tigress of Kanha called the Dhawa Jhandi female. Dhawa Jhandi is the area where she's from. So her pet name is, she's also known as DJ. So I got lucky with this. She gave us a very, very good head on for like 20 minutes with exceptional lighting. Same sequence. After seeing the previous tiger, as we move on, we spot this leopard right close to us, and we were just moving forward, and this jeep ahead of us is telling us to stop, stop, stop. And we're like, what? We're looking around, we couldn't see anything. And then suddenly I look up and this leopard is sitting right here because he's so well camouflaged. Very bold leopard, again, taken by, I think, 70-100. So very close, very rare to find a bold leopard in. This is my second leopard sighting in Kanha. I've been going there since 2014. I also have the first sighting, which I will show you. This is my first sighting of a leopard in Kanha, which was 2 years back. So this is taken very, very early morning. It was still dark. It is at 10,000 ISO. So I think I could not get my camera settings right. So the leopard finally got some pity on me and sat down and said, all right, fix your camera and then we shoot. So this is Kanha for you, just a little glimpse from there. Okay, so.
One thing, having been visiting like a lot of parks in India, Africa and also Sri Lanka, do you think it's easier in Sri Lanka to see leopards? Because I know it's one of your favorite cats.
Oh, absolutely. It is easier to see, of course. And I'll tell you why it's easier. Because leopard, which parks we go to, they're all tiger parks. And leopards do not show themselves when the tiger is around. So it automatically becomes rarer to see them when the tiger is around. In Sri Lanka, since the apex predator is the leopard, the entire attitude is different. I mean, nowhere in the world will you find the leopard as he walks in Sri Lanka. He's the king. He's the king. So you cannot find, I mean, you do find those kind of things, but in Sri Lanka, you know that they do not have a threat. They do not have a predator above them. They are the king of the jungle. And yeah, of course, it's exceptional. It's a park which is only inhabited by leopards, and they're the biggest predators. Then it becomes easier to see them. So my first visit to Sri Lanka was also in 2014, and I just love Sri Lanka for the leopards we can see there. Yeah.
We'll be seeing you again very soon, I think.
Hopefully,
in Sri Lanka.
Yes. As soon as you open, I'm there.
So we are moving to the Himachal Pradesh.
Yes.
Yeah. This is something very tough when I saw the images, and I've seen many images of you taken there. And I could see it's a very challenging task. I mean, difficult shooting conditions, the obstacles that you have to come across. Can you please take us through what obstacles and how do you like adapt to the situations in a like hostile area like that?
All right. Peggy was a partner in crime in the earlier one of the trips. This is from Spiti and Himachal, but I do have pictures of. The first thing is that you can't breathe there. Even if you breathe, you burn calories. You can't walk because when you walk, you get out of breath. When you get out of breath, you have to take a rest. Snow leopards are not something which we can see easily. Most of the times they are in one mountain range behind the other. So you have to trek for several hours in order to reach probably a distance from which where you can just see it. Forget about 800s, everyone is a fail there. In Rumbak and Ule in Ladakh, I've done Spiti, Himachal Pradesh, and I've done Rumbak and Ule in Jammu and Kashmir before. So the two totally different habitats. And let's go through some pictures. So this was from my previous trip. This is 2020. Yeah, okay. 2020 March. And this is a cub, a leopard cub, and it's a completely vertical wall. And for the life of me, I don't know how he stuck there. But he stood there. He just was standing there, looking into the camera, just looking at all the hundreds of people who had gathered on the other mountain range. This is a slightly cropped shot because this is taken by the 800, but still we were across a hill, across another mountain. So 1, 2, and 3. There are 3 cubs in this picture. Firstly, it's very difficult to spot them. They are so well camouflaged. Once you lose them, if you're looking at them through a spotter scope or your lens, if you lose them, you're gone. You will take an hour to find them again. That is one problem. Secondly, you're freezing your ass off. It's very, very cold. If the sun is not there, you've had it. So thirdly, you have to trek. You have to carry your equipment. Most of the time, your leg is going inside the snow up to your thigh. You are out of energy. On one 8-day trip, you will lose 3 kilos. So Mevan, you must join me next time. And this is like this. For example, so what happens in these kind of things, these kind of places is the trackers go before you. So while you're having your breakfast and while you're in your homestay, the trackers will go to different areas and try and locate leopards through spotter scope. Now they are very powerful spotter scopes, which is very tedious. It's not but like binoculars that you can just move them and you'll see a leopard. This is to be fixed in one place, and then you have to, if there is a movement, then you say, okay, there is something there in extreme camouflage, then you hunt them. Then a walkie-talkie message comes to your homestay that, all right, the leopard is being seen in this area, please come. And that's when we start walking. It would probably take us 2 hours to reach that spot. But the good thing about these areas is that once the leopard is spotted, he's going to rest there the whole day, because to catch the sun. They also feel cold. They do not sit on snow as we all might think, but they sit on rocks. So that's the kind of, and plus it's not on a road you're walking, it's up and down the hills, extreme conditions. I thought I was going to die on my previous trip. So it's extremely difficult. Plus your batteries, I used to sleep with my batteries to give them body warmth, because your batteries run out. In a previous place here, we still had electricity at some places, but in the previous trip 2019, where Peggy was accompanying me, we were camping in like this, exactly this kind of what you see in this picture. We were camping there. We had a snow blizzard in the night. I had to get up and check if Peggy was alive still or not. Then you have to sleep on your battery so that you can give it some body warmth. There is no battery chargers. Your cameras are frozen. It's extremely difficult. Then you have to thaw them. Then you have to give them body heat. Sleep with them inside your sleeping bag so they are warm enough for you to use them. So you will see some of these are red fox, another species that is found there. Mountain ibex, blue sheep. These are some of the different species that are found in these mountains. Okay, so when you talk about difficult conditions, there are frequent landslides, moving mountains, and driving conditions. In fact, Spiti is the world's most dangerous roads in the world. So a lot of people come here to challenge themselves and drive on this. So this is the kind of road. This is also a video, so you can get some idea. So these are roads which are frost covered. Your Jeep, only the drivers there. I don't know how they drive, but I don't think I can ever drive here. So sorry. So again, frequent landslides when we talk about difficult conditions. So this is our Jeep. These are our porters because we can barely manage to breathe, forget hold any equipment. So we have locals who actually jump like sheep. They make it sound like it's so simple. So while we were going, we have frequent landslides. So we have to carry shovels and keep cleaning them. So it is just how they are cleaning this. Removing the snow under the tire and then get moving. So while we were on this trek, we had 3 landslides. There is a Jeep of filmmakers who were joining us from the UK in front of us. This is my Jeep with our equipment and food and everything. And this is what got stuck in the snow. So we had to get rid of all the snow and then move forward. So it's not an easy journey. So this is another video which would give you an idea of what is the place where these leopards are found. So this is just, we were doing a location scout to find any leopards in the area. This is also the highest village in the world, they say. It's called Hikim. This is the highest post office in the world, is what they say, the place we are heading to. So, and all these mountains that you see on the side, if you touch them, they crumble. So that's why it's very frequent landslides.
Kesli is our last location spot. Red flags. So that means people do come here. So we'll be saved, hopefully. So now we're going to stop and do a location scout.
So, so this is just to give you an idea, a 360 view of the place.
One of the highest peaks in Himachal. It's right above Gaza, the main town. And there were apparently 2 snow leopards were seen yesterday.
So 2 snow leopards were seen in this area. That's why we are here today.
Little landslide which you have to clear to reach here. So if you see, this is.
As you can tell, I'm having difficulty breathing, so you can't talk much here.
We've been scouting since about an hour now. No luck so far. So this is the view.
So this is the village that you see below is the main village where you come and then you, that's Gaza. So,
and this is where we are right now. It's amazing, isn't it?
This is what we found. Then we did a location scout, could not see any leopards. Next day there was a snowstorm warning and we went to the village and they said there are a mating pair, but we had no idea whether they would still be there or not. But we had to hike after driving through a snowstorm next day, removing those landslides, hiking for an hour and a half, almost losing my life. This is what you get to see and everything is so worth it. So this is a cave, which is a man-made cave, which monks used to meditate. And now this is the 2 snow leopards, which they mated 9 times for us. I mean, this is the first time I was seeing snow leopards, second time I was seeing snow leopards, and they mated 9 times for us. I've never seen anybody mate so much in my entire wildlife career. But this was exceptional because it was a blizzard and it was a snowstorm and the locals were saying the leopards are not going to come out. I was like, no, if we go anything by the Hindi movie style or bad weather always inspires people. So yes, we were lucky. So we got them mating 9 times on camera. We were on a ledge. There was no sun today. So we were freezing. We were 4 of us and we were freezing absolutely. But this is what we got. So it was incredible. So just to give you an idea, now I'm going to show you this. When we came back after watching these snow leopards, it was around 3 o'clock by the time we made it to our car. The diesel of the car had frozen up. So this is just to give you an idea.
Just come back from the snow leopard trek. We saw 2 mating leopards. Now our car will start because the diesel is frozen up. Because 16 temperature now. Desperate attempt to finally
So basically the driver is now, I don't know what this thing is, this little stove that he's putting, and I was very scared that he's going to blow up the entire Jeep. And
So we just come back for this one leopard.
so look at him. Now he's defreezing the pipes, and I'm like, oh my God, this Jeep is going to explode and all my equipment is going to go along with it. So, you know, they're trying to move the car, they're trying to, sorry, and there's so much air coming from everywhere. So we have to hold.
Shake the car, try and find some solutions. So that's on the car will start. So now we'll shake the car. It's freezing here. After looking at them, the car still hasn't started.
So anyway, finally we were able to.
This is Hiccup Village.
So this is the village which is the highest village in the world.
God is really kind. We had some amazing sightings.
So this is the equipment. This is our group leader. There are some vultures here. That's my camera. One of them. So anyway, so that's just to give you an idea. Okay, so this is from the year before when Peggy was with me. And just to give you an idea, this is where we were staying. These are the tents.
That's my tent.
That's Peggy's tent. So this is where we were living. This is how we lived. We didn't bathe for 5 days. Then finally we had to go to a hotel to bathe, and you have to defreeze water and heat it to be able to brush your teeth. Before it reaches your mouth, it's ice. So there is a whole lot of. This is me sitting on the what was it? Expedition deck? No, something exploration deck, where we would come and scout for hours around the mountain ranges if you had any news, and trackers would go into different directions and would call us, and then we would go. This is with my 800. It was the most useless lens in this, nothing worked. So this is Rumbak. This was in Ladakh. That's me, burnt nose, burnt mouth, everything. These are some other Spanish expedition, Spanish people who were here on an expedition. So now going back to Rumbak, after reaching there and after living in such extreme conditions, the leopard we saw was this. This is through a spotter scope taken by an iPhone. It's at least 2 kilometers away. And we had to trek for 4.5 hours to reach this place from the observation deck that you saw me in. We had to do a 4.5-hour hike to this place. And from there, we saw a leopard who was 2 kilometers away. So this is through, again, no 800 would get it. So this is through a spotter scope and an iPhone that we could finally get a picture. Okay, so that is one of the most difficult shooting conditions that I've ever experienced.
Thank you, Archana. That was amazing. Very useful inputs, and also a few, I'm sure that some Sri Lankans are interested in going and visiting there. So it's very useful information for them as well.
Yeah. Get in touch with me. I'll take you to the best person who can take it. Yeah. And you won't see this. We'll go to Spiti, the earlier ones, the mating leopards one. There you still have chances of seeing them much closer, and they're much more in abundance. So Spiti is a better place to go. So if you have to choose between Himachal and Ladakh, then you choose Himachal. So that's my tip for you.
So we get into Sri Lanka now.
Yes.
And together we have done many safaris over the years.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about the experience what you had in Sri Lanka, and maybe a little bit comparing to India. Actually, you came up with the leopard story earlier. So just to get an idea, what experience you had in Sri Lanka.
I would just like to share a couple of experiences which were very similar in Sri Lanka, what I've experienced, and I was very, very happy about it because I was on a safari with Maven, and there was this leopardess who was sitting in front of the road, blocking the road for all of us. And I had all these big cameras with me, and most of the people who were there at that point, about 30-40 jeeps, were all tourists. And I noticed that because I was so busy shooting, I did not notice much, but I noticed that the jeep next to me would move when another jeep would come, and so on and so forth. And I'm looking at Maven. I said, Maven, nobody's asked us to move. And he said, no, they say that you're a big photographer, so let her shoot, let us not disturb us. So that was one thing which truly touched me. I was like, oh my God, that is not something which I would experience ever in India. If in India, I mean, I just lost 2 iconic shots in Ranthambore because a driver refused to budge. He was with tourists with mobile phones, and I pleaded with him. I said, just, you are blocking 3 car space. Can you just move your car so I can get 1 shot? It's a rare shot. Again, you get it in years and years. He didn't move. So I think that experience, and it happened again with me time and again. And I think it's a lot to do with the respect that people have for Maven there, but I was really touched that they gave me that respect as well and allowed me to shoot. So that is something which I really hold dear to my heart. And some exceptional images from there. Of course, this, I don't know why this is looking so pixelated, but this was a tree which had flown in by the tsunami, and it had come on the shore, and it was a beautiful tree. It just looked like a driftwood. And then Maven told me the story behind it, that it had, when the tsunami had come, that is when this tree had brushed up on the shore. And one evening I said, oh Maven, imagine, this looks like such a nice throne. Imagine if we were to see a leopard one day. I think in the next trip, a year after that, we were in the same area with around 50 jeeps there, and this leopard was spotted about half a kilometer away. And we were following him, and he started walking. And I was like, oh my God, come on, go to that tree. And he started walking on the tree. I said, come on, climb the tree. He climbed. I said, okay, sit on the tree. And he sat. It was like, really, I was telling Maven, see, he can listen to me. We were like miles apart, but this guy sat there. So this was a really special one for me. Special also because the next time I went, the tree was no longer there. It had disintegrated. So, some magical moments made there. And this was on my last trip to Sri Lanka with Peggy. I don't know the names of the leopards. Sorry, you have such English names for them that I forget. If they were Sri Lankan, I would have remembered, promise. This was a cute little leopard. So, hugging his tree. This was again a very good sighting with mom and cubs, which we had. I cannot tell you how I took this image. Maven will kill me. Okay, this is like my classic shot. I've been waiting. 2014, I started going to Sri Lanka. I got this in 2020. So I've always wanted, every time Maven would put a picture of a leopard on a rock, I was like, oh my God, when are you getting my picture? So this is what I got. This was nice. And again, like this, it was a 5-second shot. So we were the first car to enter the jungle. I always strive to be the first jeep to enter. And Maven, of course, is so highly skilled, and he saw some movement in the bushes and he said, there's a leopard there, he's gonna cross. Let us go on the other side before all the jeeps come. We went on to the other side, all these jeeps, which you see in the backdrop, Maven stopped them, that the leopard is gonna cross. Leopard crosses. I say, look at me. He looks at me and I shoot it. So I have special powers. This is again from last year's trip with Peggy, the 2 brothers. Okay, so again, when you talk about the difference between India and Sri Lanka, you will never find a leopard like this in India, because a tiger would come and maul him if he's lying like that. So here you see leopard behavior, which is so unique and so different. So I think that is totally, that is only exclusive to Sri Lanka, which is so nice to see. So this leopard slept here. I think hundreds of jeeps must have come, stopped, taken turns, and then go. So, oh, this is my favorite. Peggy, you were here for this one, because what happened was there was this leopard. This was in Vilpattu, And this leopard was there in the tree, and for the life of me, I couldn't see him. Maven literally had to hold my neck and, here, can't you see? And that's when I just saw his eye. So this was really, really special for me. Okay. This again, once we were just all of us were resting next to the river, and I was shooting some birds when I heard this commotion, and this guy was running behind another buffalo for territorial purposes, I think. So again, a very bold eagle we came across. We literally went right close to her and took this shot. And if you can see our jeep also in her eyes. So white-bellied fish eagle, right, Maven? Queen bee eater. Okay. And again, these are my first trip to Sindh Raja was last year with Maven and Maven's wife, Sam. And thanks to her and their kids, I went, because the kids are so much more braver than I am. So this bird, though, also it's found in Indian Western Ghats, but this is the first time I saw them in Sindh Raja. I was lucky enough to see this on my first visit. So all these I've seen on my first visit to Sindh Raja. Serendip scops owl, then yellow-fronted barbet, and purple-faced langur. So this was again from last year. Okay.
Can I check with Naomi about the time? Naomi, are you there?
Yes, Maven, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can go ahead, and I'm sure they're looking forward to see more pictures.
Okay, I think it's the last for Maven. We can end with Africa. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I have I've been visiting Africa since 2010, and I strive to visit one new country every year. So I've gone to South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Tanzania, Namibia. Yeah, that's all I can think of right now. So these are just a few of my pictures from there. I haven't included many because there's so many. This was in the Kalahari, South Africa. Again, the Kalahari National Park. It is what is unique about African landscape is every country is so remarkably different from one another. If you've been to Kenya, you have no idea what Namibia is or what Kalahari is. Such extreme conditions, such different landscapes, such hostile environments. It's a very varied landscape. That's why I strive to go to different places. This leopard shot, we waited 9 hours for the sleeping leopard to come to his kill. So this was a very, this is just one picture here, but this was a very unique sequence I got again. This is an African martial eagle, which is the biggest eagle in Africa, with a wildcat kill. And the entire sequence was something like, because this eagle could not fly with it, she was hopping on the ground when suddenly another martial eagle came from top and they had a fight. And then, of course, this earlier one only won. But it was really incredibly rare to see something like this. This is the brown hyena. Also the first time I saw last year in all my visits to Africa. This is Namibia, the sunrise at Namibia. Absolutely brilliant color. It looks like it's a heavily edited image. These were the real colors. Also Namibia. These are the desert adapted elephants. Namibia has a very unique landscape, which is so barren that when you enter Namibia, you're like, how can anyone survive here? Let alone wildlife. And then on top of it, you see elephants, desert adapted elephants who live here, which is it's beyond me to understand how they survive, but they do. So this is again the desert adapted elephant. This is a goshawk with a moleskin snake kill. So what these birds do is they basically go behind hedgehogs and honey badgers, and when they dig the ground, they keep following them. And wherever the honey badgers go, there is a saying in Namibia and Kalahari, they say, wherever you see a honey badger, wherever you see a goshawk, you will notice a honey badger, because honey badgers are so rare to see. So when you see a goshawk, you stop. That a goshawk, they follow. They are so intelligent animals. They follow the honey badgers, and when they dig up the ground, they catch the insects and snakes and all that. So this is a result of that. This is Namibia. It's a place called Sossusvlei, which is a very, very unique tourist destination place. People from all over the world. This is Dune 49, which is one of the very famous destinations of Sossusvlei. It's again absolutely barren. These are all dunes. So Namibia also, what is unique is when they mention their rivers, there is no water that you see on the surface. All their rivers are underground. All their rivers are underground. So the only vegetation which grows is a little bit of grass which the springboks feed on. And then this is Swakopmund. It's a place, a Skeleton Coast. I'm sure you must have all heard. It's the opposite side of Skeleton Coast. And this place, Swakopmund it's called, it gets 5 mm rainfall in about 10 years. So there is absolutely no rainfall. And the way animal species survive here is that every morning, the Pacific Ocean, the mist rises from the Pacific Ocean and goes and settles on the vegetation. And that's where they get their moisture from. So it's extremely unique habitat. Again, when you go there, you're like, how does anything survive here? So that is where this is a horn, and I'm forgetting the name, some horn, something adder. Yeah, it's a small snake. It's taken with a macro lens. So you can see these little horns on top of his head. That's a Namakwa lizard with a worm in his mouth. A caracal, this was from Ngorongoro Crater Reserve in Tanzania. This is in Botswana, Chobe National Park. This is called a Roland antelope. Again, there are so many unique types of antelopes and deer which are found there. Kori bustard, the most famous African bird. Black sable, which is, this is from Selous. It's a place in southern Tanzania, one of the biggest parks. Serengeti is the 3rd largest park, and Selous and Ruaha are the 1st and the 2nd largest parks of Africa. Mara is 4th. So, okay. So that's about it for my, I am now open to questions. I think we'll end the presentation here.
Archana, it was absolutely beautiful presentation. I mean, the sharpness, the clarity, it's fantastic. I think one of the best presentations I have seen. Just one question. How do you carry all those lenses and those bodies? I think the camera bodies, it's must be.
I'm muted. I work out. Yes, I have to build my upper body strength, but I've been doing it for so long that it just, now I can't carry anything lighter. I have to carry head. I cannot use mirrorless cameras because they're too light for me. So I think it's just a matter of getting used to it. So,
Hi, Archana, this is Laya here. So fantastic, really super. Just you said that you actually take sequences of photographs when you normally do take photographs. Roughly, how many kind of in a sequence that you might actually shoot in one shot? Like
sir, it all depends because we have such high-speed cameras now. In the last year, I had a fight sequence. Usually, tiger fights do not last more than a few seconds. But this fight was an actual fight, again, amongst siblings, but they were vying for territory. So this fight lasted 1 minute, 29 seconds. 1 minute, about a minute and a half. I got 129 frames for that sequence. I think that's my biggest sequence because it was a continuous action sequence. So that's why. So it could go to, I think about, when there is a sequence, then about 50, 60 images would be there. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
You really need to actually fast the memory storage cameras for that kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely. The buffering speed needs to be high. The recording from the capturing of the moment to recording on the card has to be very high, because if the recording is not high, then it will lag and then you will miss your shot. So yeah.
Just a follow-up, do you use any special cards for this or you just ordinary SanDisk?
No, sir, I use cards, but I use high-speed cards. Even in SanDisk or something, you get different speed cards. So I use the highest speed cards.
Right.
So what happens with the highest speed cards is the buffering happens much more quickly and the lag doesn't happen. So
correct.
Hi, Archana. This is Kapil.
Hi, Kapil. Nice to see you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Lovely presentation as always, and awesome work. I'm a big fan. I think what you're able to do consistently is to capture that feeling more than It's just not just an image. So for me, it's that feeling. So how do you go about that? Because being a regular visitor to the jungles, I think what your images do to me as a viewer is that they convey the feeling that I felt. When
Right,
I watch
right.
tiger or when I'm in the jungle. So how do you do that? That's
I,
amazing.
I don't know. I think I actually believe, I don't know if that's true or not, but because when I'm taking a image, I have these silent conversations with animals always, and I love them too much. I try never to disturb them. I've had incidents where my driver insists that we go close to the tiger, and I say, "Stop! I'm putting my camera down," or I will say, "I have too big a lens. I cannot go near." So I think mutually over the years, what has happened is a mutual respect has developed. And I think animal species is so intelligent because we see that in dogs. We see that in dogs, they're highly intelligent species. So I cannot say much about the wild animals because I'm not an expert, but I do believe if a domestic dog is that intelligent, then animal species are even much, much more intelligent than us. So I believe that at some level, I mean, like I was telling you about that fallen tsunami tree episode, and a lot of times it happens to me, like the DJ when you saw that Kanha.
Yeah.
So it's like there is a conversation going on in my mind. It's almost like there is a telepathic connect to the animal. I don't know how much of it that is true, but I like to believe that because I'm in love with them so much, they can feel it and they give me that feeling back.
Yeah,
That is how I like to think. So
and that comes through. You have very young fans also.
thank you. Hello.
They absolutely love your images. They've been watching the presentation with me. So
Thank you so much, Kapil. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome and thank you so much.
Archana, I think quite a lot of praise has come in the chat room. Although some have not spoken, everybody is, mesmerized by your images. If you go through the chat, you can see everybody has really praised your images. So I think you're on excellent wicket here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's very humbling and overwhelming to see. Thank you everyone for taking the time out. I really am overwhelmed by all your comments and wishes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I think you're an animal whisperer.
I like to believe so. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just hope the animals keep loving me like they do now.
I hope so too.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
A
And I hope
final
all of
question,
you can come to India sometime on a trip, and I will take you to Corbett and the snow leopard.
Mevan will organize it.
Yes.
That's a good thing. Just a logistics question, Archana. Since that you have been traveling so much, in flights, how many bodies do you carry generally?
Sir, I pay triple the amount of my flight ticket for excess baggage.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So I have Pelican trunks, the Navy SEAL trunks from US.
Okay.
Yeah. I carry my 800 and 200, 400 in those bags, and I check it in. And the smaller lenses, I just carry in my handbag, because if I take the 800 and the 200, 400 with the bodies, it's about 19 kilos. So I cannot go in hand baggage. Plus with the batteries and other bodies and everything, when I come to Sri Lanka, my luggage is 65 kilos, just to give you an idea. So even if I buy a business class ticket where 45 kilos is allowed, I still have to pay excess for 20 kilos. Right. So yeah, it's a big, but you can't help it.
And those Pelican cases that travel well?
Yeah. I have been traveling with them ever since I've started. Okay. So I've always carried my lenses. They've never got damaged, because the Pelican, you have to be careful on only buying the original Pelican, because those are Navy SEAL trunks. Those are airtight, watertight. You can throw them from anywhere. They don't. So I have had no damage to the equipment till now. Never in all my travels.
Thank you.
Right. If that's it, I guess we can call it a day. Again, thank you very much, Archana, for spending your time and joining us today. And as well as the PSSL members and the guests we have today. Thank you so much for joining the presentation and the meeting. Archana, we hope to see you in Sri Lanka soon.
Absolutely, you will. Absolutely. I'm just
Yes.
waiting for it to open up and I'll be there. And
Yeah.
thanks
And
once
hopefully
again
we
for having
can,
me.
yes, and hopefully we can meet you in person and organize
Oh,
something for the
absolutely. It will be my
members.
pleasure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So our next session will be this Thursday, the Creative Group monthly meeting, member presentation by Sam. It will start at 6:30, and if you have time, please join. And until we meet again, it's a good night from this end. Stay safe.